A lot can happen in a week. Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the week's news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Joyce Sowing, news columnist for the Houston Chronicle, Charles Kuffner, who writes the off-the-cuff political blog, and Mustafa Tameez, media and public affairs consultant and the CEO of Outreach Strategists. Joy, Charles, Mustafa, welcome to Houston Matters.
Hello, Craig.
Thank you for having me.
Good to be back.
Panel, on Tuesday, Texas Republican Congressman Keith Self of McKinney abruptly adjourned a congressional hearing. Why? Because one of his colleagues confronted him for misgendering Congresswoman Sarah McBride of Delaware. McBride is the first openly transgender member of Congress. When Self, chair of the Europe Subcommittee of House Foreign Affairs, introduced McBride, he called her Mr. McBride. The Delaware Democrat didn't miss a beat, replying, "Thank you, Madam Chair." Then Massachusetts Democrat Bill Keating objected, telling Self he was out of order and insisted the hearing wouldn't continue with him, quote, unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way. Self wouldn't do that, so he ended the hearing. As the Texas Tribune's Kayla Guo reported this week, Self then took to social media to note that, quote, it is the policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female, something President Trump proclaimed in an executive order. As for McBride, in a statement she said she was disappointing the hearing ended early and that she's, quote, not here to fight about pronouns. A subcommittee chairman halts a congressional hearing after being called out for misgendering a colleague. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Let's start with Mustafa Tameez.
Ugly. Look, for a long time in our country, from beginning, we've always had these culture wars. And these culture wars were used to turn out each party, turn out its base by talking about these culture wars. What's happened now is that, one party after this last election feels that because they won the election, now they won the culture war. And they can use the apparatus of government to change culture. Often in our firm, we talk about that, culture drives politics. Now, I think there's a thesis in the marketplace that says politics can change culture. And that is what's being enacted. So whether it's who calls himself an American, like birthright citizenship, to GLBTQ issues, to just name it across the board, there's an effort to redefine what it means to be an American, what it means to live in this country, and what rights one should have, not according to the Constitution, but according to those in power. And I think that thesis is being tested. And if you asked me like 5 years ago if that was possible, I would have said, oh, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in this country. It happens overseas, it happens in different parts of the world. It doesn't happen here. But we're kind of seeing it happen just the way it's happened in other countries happen here, where freedoms and rights and progress is being pulled back right in front of us. And the question becomes is what happens next in the next 6 months is not just about what happens in this country, but what happens across the world, because this economic downturn could be significant.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly? Charles Kuffner.
Yeah, I agree with Mustafa. It's ugly. And I appreciate Representative Keating for, speaking up the way he did, and I appreciate Representative McBride for having such a good initial response. She deserves a whole lot better than what she's gotten. What I can't get over in all of this, and it is just how deeply delicate and sensitive these Republicans are to something that doesn't fit into their worldview. I mean, it's all of the piece with, the anti-DEI crusade, where it's like literally any mention of something positive about someone who isn't straight, white, and male just sends them into a tailspin and cannot be mentioned. I would like to just say it's ridiculous, but it's unfortunately more serious than that. I mean, I feel like the culmination of this, in some sense, is Dan Patrick wanting to rename New York Strip to Texas Strip. The steak. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. Can you not exist in a world that is not exactly custom optimized for you? Really? Do we need to refer to like Delmonico Steaks now as Dan Monaco? Porterhouse as Patrick House? I mean, dude, live in the world already. I go on forever, but I'll stop here. And it's just like, I cannot and will not get over just how deeply sensitive, overly sensitive these guys are to like literally anything that they don't like.
We did talk about the steak thing on last week's show and kind of coalesced around this idea that it was largely a marketing concept. But, I see your point. Good, bad, or ugly, Joy Sewing?
I would have to agree with both of you. I think that it's interesting that we all agree on this. This is very ugly. To me, it's beyond sensitivity, and it's more hate, and how this narrative that transgender people are swaying our kids one way or the other is just, it's a false narrative. And what's really interesting is that if you look at the numbers in population, they make up less than 1% of our population. And yet most of the conversation now is about transgender people, transgender athletes, and you have to wonder, why is the hate so deep? I don't understand that. And so I think it is very ugly. And it's also disrespectful. She had established that she is who she is, and the fact that she wasn't called her name, I just, I think it's just ultimately very disrespectful.
I guess part of the question that I have in all of this is, if you do just want to get on with the business of whatever it is you're doing, couldn't you just say, I yield the floor to the congressperson from wherever and just be done with it?
Yeah.
Well, again, that requires, in this case, Representative Keith Self to have that amount of compassion and ability to see beyond his own selfish, hateful needs and recognize, in this case, his colleague as his colleague and a fellow human being who's worthy of respect. Without that, no, you can't have that.
But I think it's beyond that. I think there's a intentionality in this, right? It's not just being about how you treat that one person sitting across from you in a hearing. It's more about, can we use the levers of government, right, which is a hearing, and who gets to sit on the table, to impose our cultural values on them, right? This is a function of control. Can I use the power of government to tell you who you are, what you're about, how you identify yourself, any of those type of things, right? And that's kind of where we are. The government apparatus, the political power, because you won an election, you want to basically change the world according to how you want it.
Panel, on the heels of ending one longtime policy, Southwest Airlines announced this week it's ending another. You may remember Southwest said in the next year it'll have assigned and premium seating after long standing out for its cattle call approach. Well, now the airline says it will begin charging customers a fee to check luggage after decades of differentiating itself by offering free bag checking. Those in the upper tiers of Southwest loyalty program, those with the airline's credit card, and any business class ticket holders will see the fee waived, just like any other airline. The new policy will begin in late May. Southwest Airlines is ending its free bag checking policy. Is this good, bad, or ugly, Charles?
I mean, it's kind of sad, really, in just the sense that, this airline that used to be, iconic in its way, is no longer. It is, as you say, like any other airline. When was the last time you really thought of Southwest as the low-cost carrier anymore? They're not. Their tickets are the same as anybody else. They run sales, sure, but just on a day-to-day basis, you may as well fly Delta or United or whoever to wherever you're going. It's not going to be any cheaper on Southwest. And now all these other things. Now, maybe that's the right call for them business-wise. I don't know. We were a Continental family that were forced into being a United family, so I don't fly on Southwest, and so this doesn't affect me. But I do identify them, Southwest, as one of the things that made this state a little different, because we had this airline that did things differently, and now they're not. They're just another airline, and I think that's sad.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly, Joy?
Well, this is proof that all good things must come to an end. And I fly Southwest and have always appreciated the fact that they had 2 free bags you could check. So, like you said, they're falling in line with the rest of the airline industry. I read that they also will be planning their first layoff in 50 years. And I think they've been around 53 years. So that is an indication of where they are business-wise. But I do like that the fact that they still are very much iconic about Texas. And I grew up with Southwest Airlines, and many of us did. But it is kind of sad. I don't know if it's ugly, but it's just kind of sad to see that go.
Okay, good, bad, or ugly. Mustafa.
Like the Kuffners, the Tameez were a continental family. And then we became a united family. I have a different opinion. I always go to IAH. I traveled out of United now. And then whenever I'm in hobby and have to go to the Southwest, I'm like schlepping my way in. I don't like the colors. Sometimes they used to be too happy for me. When I got on the plane, they'd be all happy. And I'd be like, oh, I'm going to be happy. Don't be happy in front of me. You wear shorts. I don't understand. I can't take instruction for somebody wearing shorts.
And they sing, too.
They sing. So I would just, that's just my personal preference. And then I don't have the lever of government to impose my things on them, so I can't do anything about it. But I think they're coming up. But the tough part is, I think what Joy talked about in terms of the layoffs coming, right? I think that unemployment numbers are about to go up, right? Not just at Southwest Airlines, but across the board. I think you're going to see by the third quarter, it's going to come up.
Don't worry, they'll redefine the statistics.
That is the plan. That is the plan.
So all those government workers, they don't count, and all the economy that's lost because of that doesn't count either. So don't worry, there's always a way.
Panel, a ball cap was removed from the Texas Rangers team store website Monday. The officially licensed cap was part of a new collection featuring ball cap logos superimposed over the logo that appears on the front of the team's jersey, which worked for other ball clubs' logos. But in the case of the Rangers, well, the usual cap logo is a giant T, and the jersey logo they used was the Rangers road jersey, which says Texas. So the T was superimposed over the X, making the new mashup logo spell T-E-T-A-S, or a Spanish vulgarity for women's breasts. Whoops. As the Dallas Morning News' Evan Grant reported, the whole thing could have been avoided had the designers who did not seek approval from the Rangers gone with the ball club's home white uniforms, which say Rangers on them. That would have changed the mashup logo to a word the three of you should appreciate, ranters. So, rant away. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Joy.
Absolutely ugly. And I say this because apparently there was no one who spoke Spanish in the room. Which this is speaking to the importance of having diversity in conversations, because had there been somebody who spoke Spanish in the room, they would have seen that and said, let's think this again. So I think it is bad. And it's a reflection of the lack of foresight and the lack of making sure you understand what you're doing.
Mustafa?
Yeah. This is, we're in Texas, right? There's a sizable population. Not just on the field, which tends to be a lot of Latinos that are on the baseball field, right?
Absolutely.
But also, people in the your customers. So it just seems a little bit amateur hour in that sense, right? But to Joy's point, it is, we do have to have a diversity of opinions and things have to be vetted. But I'm not surprised either.
It's interesting, actually, that since this became public knowledge and people responded to it, a few folks did manage to get a hold, apparently, of some of these hats, and they have been selling them online and making a pretty penny, as you might imagine. Good, bad, or ugly, Charles?
Oh, I kind of think it's hilarious, actually, and I was just going to mention what you did here. In fact, I've got an athletic story up here saying, since Tuesday, 6 of the Titas hats have sold on eBay ranging from $200 to $1,000. MLB Shop originally listed them for $44.99. One eBay seller has also listed knockoffs of the Rangers hat for $36, with 123 sold as of midday Wednesday. I have to say, as someone who likes baseball caps, I'm sorry I didn't grab one of these right away, but I may have to go looking for one of the knockoffs, because this is just, it's a cell phone of epic proportions. You don't even really have to know Spanish to recognize the word. It's like your level of Spanish may not really be much beyond cerveza and baños to understand what that word means. This is what happens when you don't have copy editors.
Who speaks Spanish?
Well, it's 40% of the state's population, right? It's not like...
Or at least people who recognize a dirty word when they see one.
Joy Sewing is a news columnist for the Houston Chronicle. Charles Kuffner writes the off-the-cuff political blog. Mustafa Tameez is a media and public affairs consultant and the CEO of Outreach Strategists. Joy, Charles, Mustafa, thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.